Hello, this is David with Johnson Controls. Today we're going to talk about trending Metasys version 4.1. Talk about trending analog points and trending binary points. I currently already have Metasys opened up. I have a hot water system here. Let's say I'm having issues with my hot water supply temperature and I need to trend it. Now this already has a trend on it, which you have the option of creating another one, but let's say you don't have a trend already created. So I'm going to right click on this bar up here and click Show Extensions. Now I'll have the option to click New next to Trending. This next one that comes up gives me the option of changing it from present value. We want to keep it that. We always want to trend the present value. So I'm going to hit Next. Now I don't want to call it present value. I want to call it something that's meaningful in case I bring it up in a trend viewer. So I'm going to call it B4200 hot water supply temperature. Next we want to look at the buffer size. What this means is how many samples are going to be stored locally. The sample interval is how often it's going to take a sample. In this case, it's set up for 600 seconds, which is 10 minutes. So every 10 minutes we're going to take a sample. We have a buffer size of 144. That equals about 1 day. If I needed to trend longer, I could change the buffer size to 144 up to another number, or I could change the sample interval, let's say to 1800 seconds, and now that'll give me about 3 days worth of data. I could also change the repository to true. Now what this does is every 130 samples, it's going to send the data to the server and it's going to be stored on a hard drive where you can pull this data for years. I would only do this on the critical points because we don't want to be storing a bunch of data on the server. I'm going to change this back to false. Another option, let's say on a zone temperature that doesn't change that often, you can change the sample interval to 0 seconds and change it maybe to 1 degree. Now every 1 degree in change, it's going to take a snapshot and store it locally. Also, I could leave this as a 1 for a hot water supply temperature that's changing rapidly because I want to try to tune the PID and see exactly what's going on with the system. I'm going to go ahead and click Next and Finish. And done. Now if I go to my trend, notice it doesn't show the trend that I've created, so I'm going to right click, refresh all tabs, and then it'll populate. Now the trend I just created is only going to have one dot of data. And you can hover over it and you can see what time and what temperature it is. We're waiting on a 1 degree change for this to populate more data. So let's go to the one that somebody else created. Let's see how they created it by clicking on the book to look at the definition. I'm going to click on Advanced, and you can see they did a buffer size of 150 and a sample of 0 seconds and a change of value of 1. So we go back to the graphic by clicking on the chart view. You can see how we're changing temperature rapidly. We're taking a bunch of trend samples. Now we're not changing temperature that rapidly, and we're spacing out the time from when we're taking these samples. If I don't like looking at this chart, I can click on this table view, and now this looks like an Excel spreadsheet. In fact, you can copy all this data, and you can copy it to a clipboard and then paste it in an Excel spreadsheet and save that data for later. Now I want to trend a binary point, so I'm going to double click on this hot water pump status. Again, I'm going to right click up here, click Show Extensions, click New next to Trend. I want to trend the present value, so I'm clicking Next. I want to give it a meaningful name, so I'm going to change it from present value to B4200 hot water pump status. Now in this case, I always want on a binary point for the sample interval to be 0 because I want to know exactly when that pump turns off and on. Now for a binary point, typically you're going to make the change of value of 1. Buffer size, let's say I have a pump turning on once a day and off once a day. If I change this right now to a 20, I would record data for 10 days. So we don't need to make the buffer size a high number. If we do want this data stored longer on a server, we could again make the repository enabled to true, but if we click Next and Finish, we would get an error because our transfer set point is higher than the buffer size. We need to change this default number from 130 to something less than 20 that we have set up in the buffer size. So in this case I made it 10. I'm going to hit Next and Finish. Done. Now, it didn't populate a new tab. I need to right click and refresh all tabs. I'm going to click on Trend, and now here is the trend that we just created. If If you have any questions, please contact me or leave a comment below. Thank you.